We're just a few days away from the Week 4 game, Eagles at Buccaneers. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. Reuben, how you doing?
Doing good. It's crazy, isn't it, how once the season starts, how quickly the weeks go by?
It's amazing, yeah, and especially with an early bye week. Bye week's next week.
Yeah. I think the timing is actually pretty good. Well, we could talk about that a little later, but I do think it works out well. So we'll see how that goes.
It does. We'll kind of go through the injury situation the Eagles are dealing with right now. A few of their star players not practicing, kind of the same thing in Tampa. We'll go through that as well. We've talked to some players in the locker room this week, some interesting stories coming out. So we'll go through a few of those, and then we'll have matchups for this game, which is honestly a little tough this week because we don't know the availability of so many players, but there are some consistent things. And then we have questions to wrap up the pod a little bit later. Let's start, though, with the receiver position because it's looking like AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are not going to play in this game. Both have missed Wednesday and Thursday at practice. AJ Brown has now missed 2 weeks. This will be his third week out. Devontae Smith with that really scary concussion on Sunday in New Orleans. We haven't seen him. We've seen Lane Johnson, so he has a chance to play, but we have not seen Devontae Smith. So the Eagles are going to go into this game without their top two weapons.
Most likely. I think AJ's probably a 3% chance. Hasn't been ruled out. I guess there's a chance he could practice Friday.
With a hamstring, though, like
it's hard to imagine.
And the bye week coming up.
Week looming, they'll probably want to get him 100%, but there's still a very small chance. But yeah, I mean, they're going to have to do it with the other guys, and it's an interesting group of guys they cut, guys they traded for, practice squad guys, late round pick. It's not an ideal situation. I mean, but this is what they won't have Covey for quite a while as well. So they're down their top three receivers. I mean, Britton Covey, as far as catches go, he was their third receiver. So it's not ideal.
Yeah, I mean, they have right now, as the roster stands, they have two healthy receivers on their 53-man, then a bunch of guys on the practice squad.
Yeah, and they put Jack Stoll on the 53, which tells me they'll probably bring two receivers up as the two game day call-ups. They brought in John Ross, who has been on the street since he was back home in California, since he got cut. Paris Campbell caught a couple passes. I think he's probably – because he's been here all along. I think he's probably ahead of Jahan Dotson, but Dotson's been here long enough now, a month, just over a month. He should get going. He should be able to make some plays.
Yeah, so, I don't know if he's still ahead of Dotson.
I guess we'll find out Sunday. The fact that he's had an OTA with Jalen and all of training camp, I don't know. They're probably similar, but that's what you got to go with.
I mean, Dotson played 63 of their 72 snaps on Sunday.
Yeah, it was also, no, I get that. But Paris Campbell had more catches. I don't know. I don't think there's a marked difference in where they are. They're both. It's just not an ideal situation. I mean, Dotson.
They had the same. They both had two.
Okay, I thought Dotson had one. But my point is, it's not an ideal situation, mm-hmm. And none of these guys are. I mean, these are all guys that. I mean, Dotson was unwanted. He's considered a first-round bust in Washington. I mean, he did catch some balls. We have like 1,100 yards in 2 years, so he's caught some passes in the league. Campbell's had he had one good year where he had 600 some odd yards. There's just not a lot there. Guys are going to have to really do things they haven't done yet. Now, I think it helps to have the whole week. They're getting reps with the ones. They're getting reps with Jalen, getting extra work with them. But there's no slam dunk in that group.
No, yeah, you're totally right. And Kellen Moore, I believe, was the one who said that like some of the guys are going to have to run routes they're not used to running because now they're involved in a play at a different level. So, yeah, you're going to have Dotson out there. You're going to have Paris Campbell out there. You're probably going to see a lot of Johnny Wilson. And then I'd imagine, do you think John Ross?
I would think he'd be the next guy in, either him or Kyle Phillips.
Kyle Phillips has some experience. He's caught some balls in the league. He hasn't been here an awful long time.
Yeah. Was he? I think he was at an initial group of practice squad in August. Caught 23 passes last year. It's more than most of these guys for the Titans, I think.
Yeah.
Small. But he does have a track record, and he has been here. The tough thing about John Ross is, I mean, he was here for camp and for OTAs. I think he got here in May, got here like late May. He's just hasn't been practicing. He's been home in California for the last month.
And he hasn't played in the regular season game in a few years.
Since 2021.
But, I mean, the idea is you bring him up and he has 10 snaps.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think he would be the fourth guy in that group. But he does have that speed. And, we talked about this. I talked to him yesterday. Up in New England, he had a good joint practice. Remember, he caught a few balls, and then he had a couple long kick returns. He had a 32 and a 36 in the game, and then he had the concussion. And I don't remember if he came back at some point, but he got released right after he was cleared from the concussion. And that's been the story of his career. It's hard to imagine he can come in on no notice and not being in a camp, not practicing. He said, he worked out on his own, but that's just not the same. So I think it's going to have to be Dotson and Campbell as the 1 and 2. I like Johnny Wilson. He just doesn't have experience. He showed me a lot on that one. I know it's only one play, but he barreled over a guy at the sticks and then got a few extra yards. He was very physical. He's a physical player as a blocker. He's got that great size. They don't need these guys to be AJ and Devontae. They just need them to catch the balls when they're thrown to him. If you can get 70 or 80 yards from the whole bunch, and then you feel good about where Goddard is. You feel good about having Saquon. I think Tampa is a team you can run against. You cobble together an offense out of that.
Yeah, this is a big week for Kellen Moore because I don't want to say it's easy to come up with a game plan for this offense. It's not easy, but it's easier than a lot of teams in the league when you have all these weapons. Now a lot of the eyeballs are going to be on Saquon and Dallas, and you got to find ways to scheme them open. And that's kind of, what we talked about Nick Sirianni the last few years. Like, that was the one element that the scheme was missing, was like, what can you get out of your star players that isn't just them winning their one-on-ones? It's about getting them open. And we saw that last week, that the big ball to Dallas Goedert was a rub route, and they coached Dotson really well on it. He ran it to perfection. There was actually a play early in the game. Goddard had it was like a 20, 25 yard gain. That was Dotson too. I went back and watched the tape of that one. He did it twice in that game. He sprung Dallas Goedert for a big gain. So that's where Kellen Moore comes in, and that's where you want to see his influence in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, because, the Bucs know that Goddard and Saquon are the two weapons that the Eagles are going to focus on, and they're going to work their defense around that. And I think that's why those other guys have to make plays, because they're going to be open. They're going to have opportunities.
Yeah. And then we'll see. The hope would be AJ and Devontae miss this game. You have the bye week, and then you hit the ground running after the bye.
Yeah, if you can steal this one down there, get to 3-1 with a bye, and then I guess the Browns. I don't even know who's
the Browns.
after that.
Yeah. You're like a coach. You're just taking one game at a time here.
I do.
Yeah.
I know. I just have bad memory. But I do know the Browns are after the bye. They stink. They're not very good. But if you can
get players on defense.
Yeah, they do. Their quarterback's an issue. I don't know what they're going to do about him. There's nothing they can really do except just keep paying them. But anyway, that's a story for another week. I think if you can go down there, and I don't think this is a great Tampa team. They're banged up. They've got some holes, certainly, that we'll talk about in the matchups. But if the Eagles have some depth, they have some good players at some of the spots where they have injuries, not receiver really, but we'll see. It's good that Slay's healthy and he's back, so he's playing. So on defense, you're in fairly good shape. We'll see about the O-line receiver.
Yeah, Lane Johnson, I mentioned, he was not practicing on Thursday. We're recording this right after practice, but he was out there. He stretched with the group, and then he was kind of taking like phantom reps behind the offensive line. So in order to be able to do that, you have to be moving through the concussion protocol. So I think there's, a chance that he's ready for Sunday. I don't know whether or not he's going to play. I don't think they know now whether or not he's going to play, but I think that possibility is still there.
Yeah, he's got 2 days. I think the rule is you can only be out there if you're in the final phase, right? So I think if he's got 2 days basically to get through the final phase, and it's very specific what you have to do. There's different tests and baseline tests that you compare it to, and it was encouraging to see him out there.
Looked good, like watching him just work on his drops, and he looked fine.
Yeah, he couldn't have any contact. He's not allowed to do that. He came over and said hi to us in the locker room, and he just, didn't seem like he was foggy headed or anything.
I watched him sprint from warm-ups to the offensive line area,
and that's a good sign. I mean, every little thing like that is a good sign. So I think it's probably 40-60 that he plays, something like that.
40 that he does play?
That he does not. 40 that he does. I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think it's more likely he does not?
I think it's a little more likely he doesn't, but
okay.
I think there's a fair chance he does. And I think Fred Johnson held his own, especially as a run blocker. Was very good. But yeah, you want Lane Johnson out there.
Let me ask you a very inside baseball, inside sports writer question. It's tough to write about the offensive line group when you have Fred and Lane Johnson, because you got to keep writing full names.
Yeah.
It's very annoying.
Yeah.
How would you just got to write full names each time?
I would just write Big Fred each time.
Big Fred. I should go.
Just Big Fred.
Okay. I might start doing that.
Yeah.
Because it looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
Fred Johnson, Lane Johnson, Fred Johnson, Lane Johnson.
But there's nothing worse as a reader if you're reading something. You're reading a story and there's like a reference, there's a last name, and you're like, who is this person? And then you find out that they made a reference to him like 30 paragraphs.
Yeah, so we should explain that for anyone who cares. Like, that's generally the rule in newspaper journalism writing.
Which we both used to.
Is like, you mention the first name on first reference, and after that, every subsequent reference is just the last name. But if you're writing like a long story with a lot of characters, sometimes I'll break that rule and I'll go first name again just to remind people who in the heck it is.
Well, the good thing is we don't work for newspapers anymore, and there are no rules with websites. Just do whatever you want.
I have rules.
I have no rules.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I know you have rules. You're very rule-oriented. I break them.
What a rebel.
I know some of the rules that I break you're not happy with because you change them back.
You notice some of those?
I know. I'll still keep doing it. Anyway.
Yeah. Chance Lane plays. The other guys on
what do you think about 50-50?
Yeah, I would say about 50-50. It's really tough to tell because it's not like a feel thing. It's pretty black and white.
Yeah.
Like he either clears or he doesn't. Yeah. So now if he will get a decent sense of the chance of it if he flies to Tampa. If he doesn't fly, obviously they're going to rule him out. They have to. So we might get word on Saturday.
I would think so. Yeah. And the way concussions, and Rick Burkholder was always very, very good at explaining, the former trainer under Andy for the whole time Andy was here. Like, you can make really good progress recovering from a concussion and be in the final phase and then just stay there. Like, just because you went through the first couple phases quickly, it doesn't mean you're going to get through the last one quickly. And he was always really, really adamant about how every concussion heals at a different pace. You could be in the first phase for like 3 days and then just get cleared. Like, there's no rhyme or reason. It's kind of, it's unpredictable. So
with Lane, I know I saw him post game in the Saints locker room, had sunglasses on. So I'm guessing he was a little light sensitive after the game, but right now he looks pretty good. So we'll see. I should mention that we're talking about all these Eagles injuries. Have you seen the Buccaneers injury report?
There are like 15 guys on there.
It's unbelievable. And like
most of them practiced.
Yeah. I think a lot of them are going to play, but they're banged up right now. And some key players too. Vita Vea and Luke Gedeke practiced again on Thursday, apparently, but we'll see. Vita Vea missed last week. If he's playing, that's a different defense. He's very good. And I think we'll get into matchups later, but that could be a tough matchup for the Eagles. But then again, he might not be at 100% either. Gadeke's their right tackle. So if he plays, that's a little different. Antoine Winfield and Kalijah Kancey both missed practice again on Thursday. So they're kind of trending toward not being in there. Yeah. Antoine Winfield Jr., one of the best safeties in the NFL, and Kancey, a second-year player. I think he's going to be a really good defensive tackle in this league. So, and then 11 other players were on the injury report.
Yeah.
A lot of different guys. So even if all those players play, no guarantee they're going to be at 100%.
Yeah. It's going to be whoever deals with the injuries better is going to have a very good chance to win this game.
Yeah. Locker room this week. We mentioned Paris Campbell. Can I talk a little bit about him?
Please do.
I caught up with Paris Campbell on Wednesday, and I appreciated his time because he was so honest about his situation. He was a second-round pick in this league. He has been a starter. He's had some success. So he told me when the Eagles released him in August and they offered him a practice squad spot, he told him no. He's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be on a practice squad. I'll figure it out, but I'm not going to be on a practice squad. And a couple hours went by. He's talking to his family in the meantime, gets a call from Nick Sirianni, who he's known since 2019 when he got drafted. Sirianni was the offensive coordinator in Indianapolis, and the two had a long talk, and then eventually Campbell decided to join the practice squad. He said even when he got to the practice squad, he still wasn't 100% on board. It took him a little bit of time. He said his pride got in the way a little bit, but things work in a funny way, and now, like, week 4, he's already played in 2 games. He's about to play in his 3rd straight game. And who knows? Yeah, probably starting. And maybe, if the team isn't healthy after that, he might find himself on the active roster.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a very good chance. He's a good dude. I always enjoy talking to him during training camp because, his story is so compelling. Was he in J-Jaw's draft?
Mm-hmm.
Was that 2019?
Yeah, the Eagles almost drafted him.
Yeah, second round. They were both.
It came down to J-Jaw or Paris Campbell.
J-Jaw is out of league, obviously.
He retired.
Not playing. I don't know if
he retired from. No, he did. He retired from football.
Yeah, but if nobody wants you,
no one in the NFL wanted him.
Yeah, I guess he was in Canada.
Yeah, he went to a different league.
But yeah, he was Paris Campbell was the 59th pick overall. And it's just been up and down. He had a decent year in 22, 63 catches, 623 yards, 3 touchdowns. But for a second-round pick,
he's had a disappointing career.
He's had a really disappointing career, and I just admire that he's stuck with it, and he's got a really positive attitude. And he really loves the game, and he just loves being a part of it. And he was having so much fun during training camp, just being in a positive environment. It was awful last year with the Giants. Yeah, it was just a disastrous year for him. I think he was inactive at the end of the year.
Got benched. A
lot of injuries early in his career with Indy. It's just been,
and he had the injury in camp this year. He suffered that groin injury.
Yeah.
If that doesn't happen, I don't know. I don't think he was gonna tear training camp up, but he might have done enough that the Eagles didn't feel like they needed to go out and trade for Jahan Dotson.
Yeah, no question about it. But he's played 46 games in 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
So we do so many stories on guys who just have these great careers. And Saquon's had up and down career too, but AJ Brown, there's so many guys who just had these, stellar careers. They're superstars. Things come easy, but they're very consistently really great players. And then you have a guy like Paris Campbell, who's just the opposite and still trying to find his way. He's got to be 28, 27. Easy to root for a guy. He went to LeBron's high school, right? I believe Akron.
LeBron went to St. Vincent St. Mary.
That's where Paris Campbell went. St. Vincent St. Mary. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what else I learned?
Did you watch those LeBron games when he was in high school? When they were nationally broadcast?
I don't think I did.
I did.
I did learn that, who Sydney McLaughlin is, the world record holder in intermediate hurdles, 2-time Olympic gold medalist. She went to the same high school as Tom Brislin, the keyboard player for Kansas.
It's the most rude fact ever.
Or they're from the same town, Dunellen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sam Dunellen?
Don't. You can cut that, please. Just get rid of that. Anyway, Paris is an easy guy to root for because of what he's been through, and it's never come easy for him. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think he's going to play this week. I did want to bring back the Nick Sirianni of it all. People always kind of what does Nick do? What does he do? What does he do? This is an example of what he does. And I know it's not people want their football coaches to just be X's and O's savants, and some of them are, but relationships matter. And I know that, that's not what you want to hear from your head coach, but the fact that he has these types of relationships with a lot of his players, it is important. Now, it didn't save the Eagles last year, and that's the biggest red flag when you're talking about culture is it didn't work last year, but I think those relationships do matter.
Yeah, I think I wrote about that in my obs that he does have strengths as a coach. You don't go 37 and 18, whatever he is, if you don't have strengths as a coach, and he does. That's probably a topic for another day, but just John Ross is kind of a similar story to Paris Campbell. Has probably had even a more disappointing career. He was the 9th pick overall. Hasn't played in a few years, but he's back. He's on the practice squad as well, and yeah, he'd probably be the 4th guy right now.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's Kyle Phillips. I want to see Kyle Phillips kind of.
Okay. I get that. You talked to BG. BG made a little headline.
Yeah. He's playing so well. And I asked him, like, is there any scenario where you would consider playing another year, 16th year? And he said, I think about it. If they needed me, I said, BG, they need you. Like, I'm telling you, unless they draft 3 edges, they need you. And he said he would consider it. And
let's ask him again in like week 15 after he's played 600 snaps.
And he said that, but he said he's handling he's averaging like 10 snaps per game more than last year, and more snaps than any of the edge rushers, which is nuts. He's handling it well. He said he's like 12 pounds lighter than he was most of his career. He said most years he was 290 by the end of the year. He's in 270s now, and he said that's really helped him with his movement, and he feels great after 3 games. I don't know. We'll see. And he talked about the politics of it. They want the young guys to play, but you also want your good guys to play.
Vic doesn't seem to care.
No, Vic doesn't care. And Vic told him, Vic had a funny quote. What did he say? It's rare for a guy that age to be contributing. So why can't he just continue to be rare?
I like that.
Yeah. So I think BG kind of likes the notion of playing another year.
I mean, he's playing so well right now.
Yeah.
I know the numbers aren't there, but you just watch him. He's doing everything they need him to do. He's got energy. Like he's always had energy, but like for him to be 36 and bringing it the way he is in these games and playing as many snaps as he is, I'm kind of amazed by it.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that's kind of, you attribute that to the being in great shape that he hasn't been in for a while. He said, even in your 15th year, you learn stuff about yourself.
Yeah.
Oldest defensive Eagles player since Kimo von Oelhoffen, who was an interior lineman, played about 6 games here in 2007. He's also, this is interesting, he's the oldest player the Eagles have drafted, defensive player that the Eagles have drafted to play for the Eagles since Chuck Bednarik.
Okay, that makes sense.
That was pretty interesting because they've signed some free agent guys late in their career. Richard Dent was a little older. He played Hall of Famer.
God, I forgot Kimo van Oelhoffen played here.
So did everybody. I think Mrs. von Oelhoffen forgot that. I think
he had such a good career before he came here.
He was a solid player.
Yeah.
From Hawaii, I believe. He was a really solid interior lineman with the Bengals.
6th-round pick.
Is that right?
6th-round pick, played 197 games, 147 starts in the league.
Never made a Pro Bowl, but he was a really solid guy for a lot of years. And he finished his career here in 07. He played, he got hurt like week 4. Gosh, I remember those injuries from 2007 more than this year's. But yeah, he was, I believe he was almost 37 when he played his last game here, which was the last game of his career. That's way too much Kimo von Oelhoffen chat.
Yeah, he was like, he's listening right now going, hey, they're talking about me. All right.
He was kind of like Haloti Nada when it comes to
production.
Conversationalist.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah. I don't think I ever said a word to him.
Okay. I talked to Cooper DeJean a little bit today. He's now the punt returner with Britton Covey on IR. Covey, by the way, had a fracture in a couple places in his shoulder. He's going to miss about 6 weeks. So he's on IR. He'll return at some point this year. But Cooper DeJean now the punt returner, and he said he was a little nervous out there his first time.
A little bit.
Yeah, he said it's been just so long. Remember, he had that injury at the end of his college career, so it's been so long since he really returned to punt in game action.
November, yeah.
And the NFL's a little different. Like you have these punters with the hang time. It's kind of crazy. It's so much different in terms of just how long the ball stays in the air. And it's a little, and you have these gunners in the NFL who are like track athletes.
Yeah.
So he said it was like a little different for him, but he's glad to get the first ones out of the way. he was such an electric returner in
really
college.
was,
I'm excited to watch him.
Yeah, and it's a natural adjustment, and it'll take him a little while, but he's definitely got some ability doing it. They're lucky they have him. And there was a point where, before he got hurt, where there was some question about, I mean, I didn't think Covey was going to lose his job, but there was some question about who would be doing it. And, his history in school was so good. So we'll see. Another way to get him on the field and see what he can do.
I always get so mad watching that highlight against Minnesota that they ruled an
terrible
illegal
call.
Fair catch. God, I hate that.
Yeah, awful.
Yeah. But honestly, it's one of the most impressive punt returns I've ever seen because there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And if you haven't watched that play, if you're watching on YouTube, pause this, go and watch it and come back. But it's just so impressive. He has no room and he finds his way out of there.
It's a great play.
Yeah. I asked him, how would you describe your style as a punt returner? What do you think he said?
I don't know.
Aggressive.
That was my guess.
What
my favorite punt return ever was? Matt Dodge.
Yeah.
Deshaun.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good one.
The thing I love about it is that he bobbled it and had to go back. So all the coverage was like, once he got through that initial wave, he's gone.
Jalen Reagor had the one like that.
He did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was just a natural at it. He had a touchdown last year as a punt returner.
Yeah, he was a pretty good punt returner.
Yeah. Somebody signed him to their practice squad.
Yeah, was it Chargers?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How many teams has he been on? I can't.
Quite a few.
Yeah. Vikings, Patriots.
Saw Darren Sproles
Chargers.
in practice today.
Yeah.
So for Cooper DeJean, it's kind of crazy. You get tips from Britton Covey, who's one of the better punt returners in the league, and Darren Sproles, who's one of the best punt returners ever.
Yeah.
That's a good situation to be in.
Yeah, it is. I'm glad Sproles around.
Yeah, he's not around all the time.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he technically has an official role anymore.
Yeah.
At
one point he
was actually in
he's not in the
he's not listed anymore. I know he does stuff with the team. I know he'll help scout in the draft process. I've seen him out at the combine a few times, so I know he's around, he's helping. But gosh, what a wealth of knowledge when he's in town.
His daughter's a superstar track athlete, sprinter.
Mm-hmm.
Had to get that in there. Anything
else in the locker room you wanted to
talk to Slay?
Oh yeah.
We were both there for a conversation with Slay, who's, he was pretty open about the Trevor Penning play, and he walked us through it and everything that happened, and said I don't mind aggressive play, but that was over the line.
Literally.
It was he was so far out of bounds, and
he's healthy, by the way. He said his knee hyperextended a little bit. He was trying to test it on the sideline. He said if the injury happened earlier in the game, he probably would have had enough time to get back in.
He said if it happened in the third or second quarter.
Yeah.
It was just weird to hear him say the quarters out of order.
Well, he was going backwards.
He was just in the second or third quarter. I love talking to Slay. I just love hearing him talk.
And I appreciate he was honest about it without completely ripping the guy.
Yeah.
But if he wanted to rip the guy, he would have been well within his right. That was to me, that was the dirtiest play of that game.
Oh yeah.
I like the Devontae Smith.
That was on the refs. The Devontae one, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. That they got to blow that dead. He's going backwards at that point. You got to blow it dead. And that's at least in the lines of the field.
Right.
Whereas Trevor Penning, you're 5 yards out of bounds, my guy. What are you doing?
Yeah, and he blocked him into that sideline camera.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he got hurt. And he says his knee buckled when he hit the camera. Fortunately, he's okay.
It's such a stupid tough guy thing. You got 100 pounds on Slay. What are you doing?
Yeah. I kind of liked my headline on the story. You see my headline? My headline here. It was, where's the headline? Quote, "I'm out of bounds. Chill out." Slay opens up on cheap shot in Saints game. It was. Slay's such a class act too. He's like, somebody asked him, at least he'll get fined. You hoping it's a big fine? He says, "I don't want anybody to get their money taken away." He's like, "You guys work hard for their money."
Yeah.
I think he's so well liked and well respected around the league.
I think that's why I surprised him.
Yeah, I mean Penning's got a reputation too.
Yeah, Penning does, but I think Slay's used to kind of
deferential
treatment.
Yeah.
Guys don't take extra shots on him because he's been around so long and he is so well respected. So I think that part of it surprised him too.
Yeah, and somebody said, he's got a reputation for that kind of stuff. He said, "Well, I'm learning that now, but I didn't know that before. But he's obviously still nothing's changed because he's still doing it."
Yeah.
So it bothered him, but I thought he handled it well.
Yeah. No, it was definitely a cheap shot.
Definitely
from a guy who's not very good.
Yeah, he's not very good. He's been a disappointment. He did get called for unnecessary roughness.
Yeah.
Slated to leave the game. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dirty play. At least the refs called that one. They had to.
Yeah.
Anything else from the locker room this week that you want to hit?
It's been a good week. Had some good conversations with guys. I found out Kenny Pickett went to high school at Ocean Township with my friend's kids.
Okay.
And he was excited to talk about that. But no, I think we kind of.
I have one other injury.
I did. I had an interesting conversation with Jordan Mailata today, just about how physical that game was.
Yeah, it really was.
He said, I woke up Monday morning and I was like, this is week 3. He said, it feels like week 17. And he said the whole team was kind of like, that's why they had a walkthrough Wednesday. And that's another thing Nick's good at. Like if he senses the team needs a walkthrough, he'll give. And he said just the mental break of having a walkthrough instead of a practice. He said physically it's great. It's, because it helps you recover. But he said mentally just knowing you don't have to go through a full practice and you're doing a walkthrough. He said it's huge. He said, it just really helps your body recover. So he said he's feeling better, but he said that game took a lot out of a lot of guys. And I think he said the whole sequence of Brazil and that travel and then a Monday night game and then a short week, he said it's a lot. So extra recovery day or normal recovery time this week and a walkthrough. So hopefully, and a lot of injuries, hopefully everyone's kind of back on their feet for Sunday.
Yeah. The other thing I had, Mekhi Becton, his left ring finger, he tore a ligament in it during the game. So we saw him on the sideline trying to test it. It was kind of gross the way he was describing. He said basically every time he pushed on it, the ring finger would go all the way back to the back of his hand. So he couldn't go back in the game. But now he's going to have a cast on it to protect it.
Big cast.
Yeah, big cast like on the last 2 or 3 fingers just to hold it in place. He said he's going to be able to play. We'll see if it affects him at all. I'm kind of wondering about grip. He doesn't seem to think it's going to bother him, but I know that's a really important part of offensive line play. So I'll keep an eye on that in the game.
Yeah.
He also moved his locker.
Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So we noticed it on Wednesday when we got in there. The back 5 lockers, the back right 5 lockers in the Eagles locker room at the NovaCare complex are in order of how they play. So it's Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens. It was Tyler Steen and then Lane Johnson, but now Becton's obviously the starter. So he moved into that spot and Steen took his old spot.
Yeah. I wonder if you go with Steen for another week until that thing heals a little bit. He played so well. I would be tempted. Or at least keep him.
I wouldn't do that. The one thought I had was, I know Stout doesn't like to do it, but would you be better off if Lane doesn't play to have Steen at right guard, Becton at right tackle? I don't think they would do that. I think they would just leave Becton at right guard.
Yeah, he doesn't do it. I mean, on paper, that kind of makes some sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might be their best 5. But if it's only a 1-game thing, it's probably not worth it.
Probably, yeah.
All right, you want to take a break?
Yeah.
Let's do that. We'll take a break, and then on the other side,
Landon Dickerson accused me of stealing his phone.
Did you?
No. I think he was
Anything
kidding.
else?
I think he was kidding.
Okay. All right. Thanks for throwing that in. We'll take a break. We have matchups on the other side.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store at nissanusa.com today.
Celebrity cook Steve Martorano brings his Italian-American cooking back home to Philly. Enjoy Martorano's Prime at Rivers Casino and Steve's famous meatballs with Sunday gravy, prime steaks, and more. Make reservations at Martorano's Prime on Open Table. All right, we're back on the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. Rube, the big matchup in this game might be the Hurricane versus Tampa. As we record this, it's Thursday afternoon. I think at some point overnight, the Hurricane is supposed to make landfall a little north of the city. But yeah, I don't know how much damage it's going to do. We don't know if the stadium will have any issues.
Yeah.
I know the Bucs moved their practice up on Thursday to get it in. Yeah.
Yeah, just a lot of unknowns, and that's just typical Florida weather. It just seems to be happening a lot.
Yeah, I mean, they just got hit not long ago.
Yeah, so hopefully everyone's okay, and there's not a lot of no damage, minimal damage.
Yeah, let's get into the matchups a little bit. It's crazy. It feels like the Bucs are like in the NFC East by this point. Like the Eagles play them a ton.
Yeah,
and they've beaten up on the Eagles. Aside from the regular season win in Week 3 last year,
and the Eagles killed them.
Yeah, they really did. They were a much better team, and heck, they were the better team talent-wise in the playoff game. It just didn't matter. They were so defeated at that point. But in 21 and in 23, the Bucs booted them out of the playoffs.
Yep. Yeah. It's an interesting matchup, and just I think Todd Bowles makes it compelling because of the way he plays, the way his defenses play.
Yeah, it's an aggressive defense, and we've seen it now for many years, and that's where we'll start is the blitz. And the Eagles have done a really nice job so far against the blitz in general. I've kind of been surprised that teams haven't done it more to them, knowing that they've struggled with it in the past.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I also think everything is, I mean, I think Kellen Moore, the biggest thing he's done has kind of settled that whole thing down. And Jalen has answers. He has hots. I think he's more confident when teams bring pressure, when they send an extra guy. It just got so bad last year. And I think it's funny because like early in the year, it wasn't a big issue. Like in that first game, blitz didn't bother Jalen. So I just think they got stale. They got predictable. That was so bad, that playoff game, because we knew what they were going to do, and the Eagles looked like we were completely unprepared for it. And you could say it's on Brian Johnson, but that was on Nick. I mean, he just didn't have his team ready to play. And Tampa's won 5 of the last 6 against the Eagles, by the way, since 15. Yeah, it was bizarre how they just didn't prepare for it. And I think it's been a big focus of the offseason of Kellen's installation and his offense, and Jalen seems really comfortable with it. And he was for most of his career until he was fine.
But I think that's been the book on him, though, is try to send pressure.
22, he was great against the blitz.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just, and also like blitz is this all-encompassing term where it's like there's different kind of blitzes, and Todd Bowles will send you 0 blitzes all day, and that's typically what's given them the most trouble.
Saquon was talking about how every game Todd Bowles blitz package is different. He said it's not like there's the Todd Bowles blitz. He said it's always different. Every time he played against them, it's been a different package, different looking blitzes, guys coming from different places, and corner, safeties, whatever, backers. So yeah, it's going to be a big challenge, but it's also an opportunity for Jalen to make some plays.
Yeah, and I think they're eager to put it to the test because it has been so much better. But like, you think of blitzing defenses, you think of Todd Bowles and the Bucs, and they're just not getting pressure otherwise. Right now, they have 2 sacks as a team in 3 games, which is atrocious, dead last in the league. So any team that has trouble getting after the quarterback is going to blitz more. That's on top of the history of Bowles anyway.
Yeah, no doubt. So that'll be interesting thing to watch. I think that's going to go a long way to determining how the Eagles can do on offense. And obviously you'd like AJ and Devontae because, but Saquon and Goddard against the blitz are good answers. Middle of the field.
Yeah. And Barkley as a blocker is helpful. The one blitz the Eagles didn't pick up in New Orleans, It was Gainwell, and he was just a little late getting there.
Yeah.
And Gainwell's not bad against the blitz, but like,
it's come a long way.
Yeah, I think Saquon's just a bigger body type. He gets in the way more.
Yeah, and he seems to really relish doing it, which a lot of running backs kind of do it begrudgingly. Saquon loves being an all-around kind of player.
Yeah, him and Devin White had some really fun battles in training camp. Devin White's always been a really good blitzing linebacker.
Yeah. 6 of the last 9 Eagles Tampa games have been in Tampa. Eagles haven't beaten Tampa at the Link since 2009. Most of the games have been down there. It's weird how the schedule.
I like that stadium, Raymond James.
Great stadium, isn't it?
It's a really good stadium. I'll tell you what, though, those damn cannons
I know.
on that pirate ship, they set them off before the game. It feels like it's always during one of my live TV hits, and I jump every time.
And every time the Bucs score a touchdown,
Mhm.
and Clark, he's like, whoa.
Yeah, it gets Clark more than me, but yeah, it's loud.
Yeah.
The next matchup I have here on my list is the Eagles offensive line versus this Bucs D line, specifically Vita Vea. If he plays, it changes the entire front. There just aren't many 350-pound dudes hanging around who can do what he does. And Vita Vea is someone we've talked about quite a bit because in my eyes, that's like, if you want Jordan Davis to be anything, it's Vita Vea.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's going to be a big challenge for that interior, especially Cam. It's going to be a big challenge. I don't know if it'll be 100%. We'll see.
I don't think it'll be 100%. He might play. He's just so good.
Yeah.
He's so powerful. And it's a tough matchup for Cam. It was always a tough matchup for Kelsey.
Yes.
Just the pure size disadvantage makes it tough, even if you play with great leverage. And I think Cam probably has a little more strength at the point of attack than Kelsey, so maybe that'll help. But the size disadvantage it makes it really tough.
It's enormous.
You're going to have to slide protection that way.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. They don't have a ton of great edge rushers. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is probably their top guy. He was a first-round pick a few years ago. Hasn't been a great player. Yaya Diaby will have some moments. He's kind of a smaller rusher. He could get he's the type of body that gives Jordan Mailata trouble sometimes. So, I think they'll be okay though. Those guys don't really strike fear into you.
I saw. No, never mind. I'm not going there. Never mind. I was gonna make a Yo-Yo Ma Yaya Diaby joke, but it wouldn't have been funny.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna withdraw that one.
I think it's probably for the best.
Yeah, it is.
Antoine Winfield Jr., we mentioned him, did not practice the first 2 days of the week, missed the last 2 games. I think it's looking likely that he's not going to play.
It looks that way.
If by some chance he ends up playing, keep an eye on that. We talked about this last week. Tyrann Mathieu, Winfield's a little bit different of a player, but he's one of the best safeties in the league, and Jalen's had trouble with safeties this year.
Yeah, 3 of the 4 picks. 3 of the 4 on third down also.
Passing down.
Yeah, but I mean, when he has passed on first and second down, he's been very good.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. But, it's interesting how safeties have gotten them and not corners. I don't know what that means. I don't know. Maybe it's...
Well, they've been good safeties. It's not like average Joes are picking them off. It's been Xavier McKinney, Jesse Bates, and Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all good players.
Like good, savvy veterans who can.
But the fact that they're not corners, does that have anything to do with Jalen maybe not seeing the help?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Or maybe staring it down a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also think it's relatively small samples.
It is.
I have Saquon Barkley and Dallas Goedert here. Levante David's been playing for, his year 15 in the league. He's been playing,
I think, 13.
13, yeah. He's been around a long time. Still playing at a pretty high level. Maybe he's lost a step or two, but he's kind of in the middle of that defense. But I think this could be an opportunity for Saquon to have a really big performance. They haven't been great against the run. They're giving up
bad
4.9 yards per carry. It's kind of crazy.
26. I think they're 26 in yards per carry, 25th in yards.
Yeah.
Like 137.
Yeah, 137.7. And it's not like there's one outlier game. It was 138, 139, 136.
They're consistent.
Consistently bad. That's all I had there.
And I'm there's been a lot of coaches here who you just don't have a lot of faith in them hammering the rock against a poor run defense. I think Kellen will. Kellen's history has been that he will.
Yeah, and he goes back to Vita Vea too. Like if he's not in there, if he's not 100%, it changes the dynamic of the game a little bit.
I'll be surprised if the Eagles, between Saquon and Jalen, and maybe a couple Gainwell runs, if they don't run it 35 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that. I think the game script will change that too. Like
sure.
They get behind and they're probably not gonna run as much.
Do you realize how good Saquon is? I don't know if we talk about him enough.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know he's how many carries does he have? What is it? 21, 22, and 17. like about 60 carries. 28% of his carries have gone for 8 yards or more. Like, I mean, that's insane. More than a quarter of them.
Mm-hmm.
His career average, he's been a good player, is like 15% have been gone for 8 yards or more. It's almost double that. He's in such a good situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
Not going great.
Not going
in
well.
Chicago. Not all on him, but yeah. Flipping to the other side of the field, Mike Evans, slow start by Mike Evans standards, but still a tough matchup just because of the size, 6'5", 230 or so pounds. I'm excited to see Quinyon Mitchell against him.
Yeah, and it was funny. I was talking to Reed Blankenship about interceptions, the art of an interception, in a locker room on Wednesday, and Quinyon Mitchell walked by and he stopped the interview and he's like, "Q, hey, we're talking about interceptions. Something you should have about 3 of them by now." He's like, "Why don't you get me one?"
He really should.
Yeah, he could have had 2. Should have had 2, could have had 3, I think. And they're going to come, I think.
He's in the right position.
Yeah, that's the main thing. I think my bold prediction on pregame is going to be a Q interception Sunday.
Every week until he gets one.
I might just do that. Eventually,
He'll get one.
Yeah, and I'll be right. Yeah. So, I mean, I have one correct one this year. It's that Kendall Milton is going to score a touchdown in the preseason game against the Vikings.
Okay. Does that carry over to your record in the season?
Everyone else says no, but I'm counting it.
Okay. Avonte Maddox, I think, is still the nickel. We saw that last week. They weren't a nickel a ton, but when they were, it was Avonte. Keep an eye on that in this game. Chris Godwin, it's been like 65.2% of his snaps have come inside, and he's their best receiver right now. So that's something to watch that we probably haven't talked about enough.
Yeah. Avonte, I mean, he had that tough game, first game. He's been okay.
Yeah, I think he's been okay. I mean, he didn't have to play very much last week.
Right. They didn't play much. But yeah, he's been fine.
And then the Bucs running backs right now, kind of interesting. Rachaad White has been pretty awful.
Yeah.
Running the football, and Bucky Irving's been good. So,
and so far they've split him almost evenly.
Yeah, you got to think that's not going to continue.
Yeah.
Rachaad White's been good as a pass catcher, so maybe they'll just like start using him like that. But at some point, Bucky Irving is going to be the guy, the 4th round pick.
You would think.
Yeah. And then I'm
really curious to see how the Eagles will do against the run. Like, I don't think one really good game against the run means they figured it out. There's a chance they have, but still 2 out of 3 games this year, they've been awful against the run. So.
Yeah. And in this game, Vic Fangio talked about it, but it's going to be really important how they handle the run in their 4-man front.
Yeah.
Because the Saints play bigger personnel packages, which, like, I think the Eagles probably would have gone to a 5-man front anyway. You probably needed to go to a bigger front just to slow down the run a little bit. But can they stop it when other teams are in nickel and they have to, or when other teams are in 11 personnel and they match with nickel and you have smaller bodies on the field, you don't have as many linemen? Are you still as effective as a run defense? We don't know that answer yet. Right. And that's the really important answer because the Bucs are in 11 personnel a ton, and league wide, it's like over 70%. So
crazy.
You have to match it with a 4-man front a lot of the time. And now you have ways that you can get around. You can like kind of walk Zach Bond up and present a 5-man front at times. And I think they'll do that a little bit, but a lot of it's going to come down to the guys up front, just playing with good technique, keeping their hips square and making plays.
Yeah. And I think what we saw from Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, they've got to just be consistent. Jalen Carter doesn't have to play like that every week, but just play consistent, good, productive, steady football, and they'll be really good against the run.
Yeah. And speaking of Jalen Carter, this could be a big game for him.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, the interior of the Bucs O-line is awful.
It's not very good. And I think week 3 this year against the Saints is his best game ever. Before that, it was week 3 last year against the Buccaneers. He was a menace in that game too. I'd probably give the advantage to this New Orleans game.
Yeah.
But he was so good last year against the Bucs. And I still think this is a game where he can completely take it over. And if he stacks 2 of these games, all of a sudden you're rolling downhill. Things are looking really good for him.
It's a really good sign if that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all I had. Anything else that's on your mind going into this game?
No, I think we covered everything.
Okay.
Yeah. The weather's the X factor. I mean, the weather itself should be gone by Sunday. Oh,
It looks like some showers
little
kind of
rainy.
lingering
Yeah.
after it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, Todd Bowles, he was defensive coordinator here. He was Andy Reid's last defensive coordinator after Juan got fired in the middle of that 2012 season. Impressive guy.
Yeah, and he's been with Tampa since 19, and that was after being with the Jets.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's staying power. He's doing something right.
He's a good coach.
Yeah.
Good guy.
All right, let's get to some questions. If you have one for us, it's eagle-eye at NBC Uni. That's NBCUNI.com. If you're watching on YouTube, you have the QR code. You can scan it and send us one that way. All right, let's get into it here. What do we have here? First one up from Andy. Gentlemen, our entire family is a big fan of the Eagle Eye podcast. We especially enjoy the ongoing Rube-Dave dispute over literal meanings versus figures of speech. Looking forward to more discussions about being a fly on the wall. Given Rube's love of all vehicles and machines that transport people or things, whenever Rube mentions a mode of transit, there should be theme music for a Rube's Transportation Corner segment.
Oh.
Rube then has to quickly name a song referencing the transportation type. I like this. There was more to the comment, but that was the main bullet point there.
It's a little scary, but interesting. Tom, can we get a little transportation music?
Or,
yeah,
just like that.
What was it? It's just like the sound of a train.
God, that wasn't bad, right?
That was as bad as Steve.
Next question from Bill. Longtime listener, first time emailer. Love your dynamic here. Very enjoyable to watch/listen to. What is your take on Devin White being down again? Yeah, he had a boo-boo, but these last two games he's been playing left out.
A boo-boo? I mean, if he's not starting, there's no reason to be up because he doesn't play special teams.
Yeah, so that's the tricky part. You're limited with players on game day, and he just doesn't play special teams. So I think he's on the team. If there's ever an injury, you can play him. But until then, I think you keep him on ice.
Yeah, you have to.
And I'm sure he's not happy about it, but
can't waste a roster spot. And he was asked about playing special teams, and he said, well, if they ask me, I'll do it, but I've never done it. He made it really clear.
He has a little bit.
Yeah, a snap here and there. Yeah, he has. I don't think he's ever played more than 70 snaps in a season, something like that. But yeah,
theoretically, he should be a good special teamer.
Oh yeah,
from just a size, speed perspective,
strength. Yeah. I agree with that.
But it's tough to, this deep in his career to suddenly start doing that.
Yeah.
All right. Next question here from Ian. Hey guys, big fan of the pod. It's a must listen every time it drops. What's the deal with Cooper DeJean? I know he was hurt earlier in camp, but he was activated off the NFI almost 6 weeks ago and played in the final preseason game. It's week 4 and he's still a no-show on defense. With Quinyon Mitchell having a big-time role, it's not like Vic has an aversion to rookies, and I thought after Isaiah Rodgers got hurt and Avonte got picked on, there would be a bigger role for Cooper, but he almost never plays on defense. I feel like when Sidney Brown comes back after the bye, his role may shrink even more with all three safeties healthy in nickel and dime packages. He was a big-time draft pick. Is there something going on with him physically, or is he not there yet in terms of the defensive scheme?
Well, I don't think it's any of that. I mean, it's just where do you put him? I mean, he played 6 snaps in the Falcons game.
Yeah, but then they did pull back that role.
Yeah, I mean, I still think he's going to be the slot at some point.
I do too.
I don't think they're disappointed in him. 3 weeks for a rookie is a lot. 3.5 weeks he missed. It's a lot, and it wasn't 6 weeks ago. I mean, it was when he was activated. It was probably about a month ago, right? And maybe 5 weeks. Yeah, it was.
He was activated while we were in New England.
Yeah, it was in Foxborough.
So yeah, it's 6 weeks.
Yeah, it is 6 weeks. Okay. Yeah, I think. I mean, he's got punt return.
Earlier in the season, he was the dime. Then they gave that to Keely Ringo. And the reasoning we got was they wanted him to focus on one position, and that position is nickel. So right now, he is just the backup nickel.
And I think that makes sense.
I once thought, and I still might think this, that he'd be the nickel coming out of the bye. But if Avonte plays well in this game, you probably don't move him.
Right.
I think this game is a big determining factor in that.
It could be. At some point, he will be the He will be the slot.
Any thought that like just a bigger body, whether it's Cooper or whether it's Sidney Brown when he gets back as the nickel, if you're having these issues in the nickel package stopping the run?
Yeah, I think it's a fair thing. Wow, who knows? Maybe we'll see some of that Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Next question from Aaron.
And I mean, we don't know for a fact Sidney's coming back. I would assume he would
at some point.
Yeah, he looks good. He looks good.
I was watching him run sprints on the side field today. I want the GPS number on it. He was flying.
He's fast. Yeah.
Straight line speed. Yeah. Next question from Aaron. Good morning. Well, it's afternoon when we're reading it, but I'm sure it was morning when you typed it.
It's morning somewhere.
I'm from Whitehall, PA, and I couldn't be happier with how
Whitehall. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. By Allentown.
Yeah. And we couldn't be happier with how it's going with Saquon. He is so good for our community here. Having said that, the drop against the Falcons was devastating to watch. However, as I counseled myself through it, I had to think that the loss against the Falcons fired them up enough to beat the Saints on the road, especially the defense was fired up. I'm curious if you think they would have still beaten the Saints if they would have won against Atlanta. Is there such a thing as a good loss? And do you remember any losses in the past that actually helped the team get more focused?
It's so hard to tell. A lot of guys did say that they were a little embarrassed by the way that Falcons game ended.
It should have been.
Yeah, they should have been. But I don't know, like if you play harder because of a previous game, what does that say about like you weren't going to play hard if you won?
Yeah, but I think sometimes there is like finding a level that you wouldn't normally find.
Maybe. I look at I think every game's just separate. And
man, you are a coach. Every game's separate. We're on to this week.
I really believe that though. I didn't say we're on to this week.
Well, earlier you're like, I don't even know who they play after the bye.
I don't. Yeah.
I think there's a human element to it, though. Like, tell me that C.J. Gardner-Johnson wasn't more fired up to play in New Orleans last week. Should he be fired up for every game? Absolutely. But like, there are some games that mean more.
Yeah, but for a whole team.
Yeah, but that's like kind of the psychology of it. Maybe. After coming off like a bad loss.
Maybe there's something to it. Maybe, a lot of guys said they had a really good week of practice after the Falcons game, so maybe they were more focused. Heck, Vic even said Jalen Carter was more focused. Mm-hmm. He used that word. So
yeah, I think there can be wake-up calls. I can't remember like a specific instance. I know that there have been some nice wins after bad losses before.
Yeah.
We've seen that. The one that always kind of rings in my mind, and it was a short-lived fix, but after the loss to Detroit, Thanksgiving 2015, they came back and beat the Patriots the next week. That was Chip's final year.
Yeah, I think that was Bill giving Chip a little gift.
Maybe.
Yeah. But anyway.
Can you remember any that stick out to you?
No.
Okay. Last question here from Julian. This was an email titled Kellen's Role. I think his role was overstated from the beginning. It's a way to sell the fans on the prospect of Sirianni returning after last year. I'm sure Sirianni is in Kellen's ear constantly like he was with Brian Johnson and Shane Steichen. In my opinion, the big tell is we retained both the passing game coordinator, Kevin Patullo, and the run game coordinator, Jeff Stoutland. Whenever Sirianni discusses the game planning process, he would always name drop Patullo and Stout before the OC, whether that was Steichen or Johnson. I would be positively shocked if Sirianni is not still leading all the offensive game planning meetings along with his pass and run game coordinators as in previous years. Yes, I understand this is contrary to the messaging coming from the team, but I believe that was some combination of selling the fans on Sirianni's return as well as genuine wishful thinking on the part of the organization that Sirianni would step back more than he was willing to. In my opinion, the Johnson firing was purely for show if you retain Patullo, who surprisingly gets little publicity. This is a tinfoil hat email. I like a conspiracy theory. Giving this any credence?
No.
Yeah, I mean, this is the offense looks different. Like if the offense looked the same,
it's completely different.
Like it just looks different.
Yeah.
I mean, Nick it's only one example, but Nick for 3 years told us we don't need pre-snap motion, and they're moving everyone around the formation.
Yeah.
So it's clearly a different offense. I think he's involved still.
Yeah.
I don't think it's completely hands off.
I mean, unfortunately, just before halftime, that blew up in his face. But as far as play calling, Nick might be in his ear, but you can see who's calling the plays. I mean, Kellen's got the
What did you
play
make
card.
of Nick's what did he say the other day that he's like, Kellen's driving the car and he's in the front seat, like telling him stuff in his ear. Most annoying person in the world is the backseat driver.
Yeah. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I know. It's like, does he not think that? Does he not think backseat drivers are annoying?
I think he knows he's annoying.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
God, imagine being in a car with Nick. Turn here. No, turn left. Like, yeah. Why'd you go through that light? Watch out for the truck.
And he's not leading all the game planning meetings. He's not even ever in every offensive meeting. And maybe you don't believe that, but yeah, he's not.
No.
Okay, that's it. If you have that question, once again, the email address is eagle@nbcuni.com. Before we finish this, you don't have to give me your prediction if you don't want to, but
I have one other thing before we do the prediction.
okay.
We were talking about the Billy Preston movie that Jeff Lurie's involved in, his production company. I saw Jeff coming out to practice, and I had a minute to ask him about it, and he said it's still coming out.
Oh, good.
It's still he's planning a screening in Philly.
Who's Billy Preston, by the way?
Billy Preston was a great keyboard player. Played with the only person to play with both the Stones and the Beatles.
Yeah.
Plus a bunch of other. Had his own stuff. Brilliant guy. A fascinating life story. And I guess the same production company that produced Summer of Soul,
which was great,
which was incredible, wasn't it? Is doing the Billy Preston movie. I hadn't heard anything because Jeff told us about it a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently it's either been made or it's in post-production, and it's going to come out. So that's good news.
Very good.
I think they go down and win. The injuries scare me, but I really like what I saw Sunday. It doesn't guarantee that they're going to go down and do the same things, but I don't think this is a great Tampa team. I think you can run on them. I think you can maybe pressure Baker Mayfield. Maybe get a sack. Has been.
Yeah, we didn't mention Denver had 7 sacks against him last week. A lot of that was like Denver got a lead and were able to pin their ears back, but that could happen this game.
Yeah, I think they've allowed the second most sacks in the league, second most per pass play. And the way the interior guys were pressuring, I think that's a real advantage. All those guys, but especially Jalen against that interior of the Bucs O-line. I think that's a huge advantage for the Eagles. So I think you can run on them. I think you can pressure them, and I like that combination. So I'm going to go Eagles, but in a close game, just because they're all close.
That's probably fair. Yeah, I think I'm going to pick the Eagles this week too. All right, if you enjoy the Eagle Eye Podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button, subscribe there as well. Another 1:00 game. Very exciting for the pod. We'll have a pod after the game. We'll talk to you on Sunday. Take care, everyone. This has been Eagle Eye, presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.